alley. Liza, Liza, Liza. Ha! That's me.
Making people happy. That's what it's about.
All eyes on me.
And if you want to go with me, great. Just let me know.
Kids, where do you hear this? Nice.
Making people happy, happy.
All eyes on me.
And if you want to go with me, great.
Kids, where do you hear this? Nice. All eyes on me.
Making people happy, happy.
Kids, where do you hear this? All eyes on me.
And if you want to go with me, great.
Kids, where do you hear this? Nice. All eyes on me. Manelli, Manelli, Manelli. Liza, Liza, Liza. Ha! That's me. Kids, where do you hear this?
Making people happy. That's what it's about.
All eyes on me.
And if you want to go with me, great. Just let me know.
Kids, where do you hear this? Nice.
Hey. Okay, here we are. Give me one more second here. I think I'm missing an image. Okay. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. Bring your questions, bring your comments. We're just getting started. We are live streaming on multiple platforms, so just give me a moment while I kind of get everything up and running. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday afternoon, at least where I am at, which happens to be in lovely Chicago, Illinois. It's the United States. I know we've got people sometimes from around the world, which is much appreciated. So welcome. Come on in, have a seat, and if you're like me, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and let's talk about OpenClaw. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. Let me make sure I've got my TikTok live stream going. Yep, should be good. Okay, so who am I? Why should you care about anything that I have to say? That is a pretty good question. So my name is Joe. I am a solutions architect. I have been a solutions architect in the tech space, tech industry for nearly 30 years. I've managed to weather a lot of storms during those 30 years of lots of things related to layoffs and changes in the economic environment and outsourcing and dot-com boom and the dot-com bust and the financial crisis. And now here we are facing one more crisis to the tech workers of the world. And actually in this case, it's not just the tech workers. It's also going to be anybody who has got a job working at a keyboard. If you do this all day long, you are at risk in terms of your job. Now, this particular live stream is less about talking about layoffs and jobs and more about talking about OpenClaw specifically. And if you know what OpenClaw is, great. If you don't, I'm going to give you a little highlight on it. It has gone by multiple names, multiple different names. We're going to talk about what those names are. You are welcome to drop into comment, question or comments anytime you like related to the topic we're talking about here. Or if you have a general AI question, I'm happy to try to answer that for you as well. Okay. I see Mary out there. Welcome, Mary. And I look like, I don't know who David Bazuki is. Bazaki? I don't know who that is. If you're still out there. I'm going to take it as a compliment because I don't know who he is. So thank you very much. So again, what are we talking about? We're talking about OpenClaw. So here's the how it has kind of evolved. It hit the market, so to speak. First, understand that what OpenClaw actually is and what it's not. So what it is what we refer to as a GitHub project. And I know there are going to be people who are listening to me and watching me who have a deep technical background. And I know there's also a lot of you who are not going to have a technical background. So as a solutions consultant, as a tech consultant for many, many years, I try to make things as simple as possible. I try to help you bridge the understanding between the technical and the non-technical. So I will do that for you throughout this session. But if there is something specific that you have a question about that I've mentioned, all you got to do is drop it in chat. We are streaming on multiple platforms. As I mentioned, we're streaming on X and TikTok and on YouTube, long and shorts, and I can generally see all the chats coming through from all those different channels. Now, if I don't get to you right away, please don't leave. Hang out for a while, and I will try to get to you in terms of any kind of questions you might have or follow-ups. Also, with the streams are a little bit delayed. By the time I see your chat or question and I give you a response, it may be like 10 or 15 seconds, I think, in terms of the streaming delay. So again, don't get too freaked out by that, okay? Give me 1 second. I'm just going to update another window over here. Sorry, running multiple streams can be a bit challenging. There we go. Okay. So I'm back. So welcome. I see we've got a couple drops in chat here. Welcome, Ryan, I think is the name. I tend to abbreviate names, so I apologize. Let's see. I want Discord bots. I want bots for Discord. So so what you're talking about is certainly is possible. Okay. Will OpenClaw allow you to do that in terms of implement that? Chances are yes. But here's what we're mainly going to talk about, and that is when you install OpenClaw, what does that actually mean? What does it actually do? What doesn't do? And what are the significant security concerns over OpenClaw? So again, OpenClaw was originally known by ClawdBot, which was CLAWDBOT. Okay, no confusion with Anthropic's Claude Code. Okay, very important. And one of the reasons that this project had to change its name was because they received probably not so polite letter from Anthropic asking them to politely change their name because they were potentially going to encroach on trademarks. Okay, so very common, you know, it happens, and fortunately wasn't a big deal. Now the next thing they did is changed it to the next name, which was MoltBot. Okay, kind of like a crab or lobster molting. Anyways, apparently they didn't like that, and then they changed it once again to OpenClaw. Who knows? It may change again, but that just kind of gives you an indication of, you know, the due diligence that probably wasn't quite done as related to even releasing this project so widely. Okay. Now I see another question. Do you know in advanced learning in any programming language? So if you're asking about recommendation in terms of programming languages or something to learn, my recommendation at this point in time, if you're in the tech world or you're going to school for it, really focus on anything that supports AI, right? That would be machine learning, complex mathematics in terms of algorithms is a very high in demand. Data science or data scientists are going to be very high in demand. All these different aspects, because at the end of the day, in terms of AI and the large language models, they are working largely on neural networks, which is all very algorithmic based, with various mathematical weights across all the nodes that are involved in this. And that's going down a bit of a rabbit hole. Python would be better. Python's a good language to learn, but here's the thing. My best recommendation for anybody getting into the tech world is the language itself is not going to matter so much, because the language itself is going to be handled by AI. Okay, I use Claude Code, and I use OpenAI's Codex these days for coding, and they'll code in any language you want. What you need to understand, and you can do this with any language, Python's perfectly fine, is you need to begin to understand how logic is put together. Okay, in other words, what does a logical structure look like? What do rule-based structure look like, right? Understand how to put those things together in any language would be fine. And by doing so, you can take that to the next level, okay? And that next level for me is not vibe coding, okay, but is what we call prompt-led development. That's understanding enough about the architectural requirements, both from a language perspective, but also from a solutions implementation perspective, meaning the back end and persistence and security and things of this nature, to be able to lead a agentic process, agentic coding agents like Claude Code, and also like OpenAI's Codex, lead them in prompt-led development. As far as my LinkedIn goes, you're welcome to go out there. You search by my name, you should be able to find me. Okay. Also, So anyways, that's a basis. So I know lots of folks are concerned about the future in terms of technological workers, but at the end of the day, there are going to be lots of opportunities, but you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. You're also going to have to understand that the days of being the best Java programmer in the world, well, you're never going to beat AI at Java programming, JavaScript programming, Python coding. Okay, what's going on now with the AI models is that the AI models in the coding realm, okay, domain specifically, have advanced so far that they're now in essence coding the next AI model, right? So AI models are now coding and creating the underlying architecture and framework for the next AI models. So what they need is tech people who understand the concepts. They need people who are more science-based and more based in being able to do the critical thinking and breaking down problems into discrete components in order to come up with solutions for them. These are really the most important kind of skills. Also, the key skill for most people moving forward are going to be related to what we call soft skills, and that a lot of soft skills are around communication and be able to break down things in such a way that you can communicate them clearly. So I see, by the way, I'm face blue smiling. I think you're from India, I think is what you're saying. So welcome. Welcome. I appreciate anybody joining from anywhere in the world. I know with streams like this, we get people from all over. So again, you've got questions or comments, feel free to drop them into chat. Now, let me address one thing, because this came up yesterday. I did a similar stream yesterday, and this came up by a question from a gentleman who is not a technical person from what I understood, okay, but he has a business. And I feel very strongly about this, that if you are a business owner today, okay, and you've seen OpenClaw, ClawdBot, MoltBot, whatever you want to call it at this point in time, and I'm just going to say OpenClaw from this point on. But if you're a small business and you're like, wait, that sounds like just what I've been looking for, let me install that. Please listen to me and do not do that. Okay. Now you're gonna get one person who might say to you, go hire yourself a consultant, and you're gonna push back probably and say, well, wait, I know consultants are gonna cost me money, so I don't want to hire a consultant. Somebody told me I could do this on my own, or somebody who's got a similar type of company that I have, they've installed it, they like it, and so they're gonna help me do it. I'm telling you, the number of security holes in this particular project are significant, and I have spent the last week or so diving deep into this project and what it is and what it's not. And the important thing to understand is the complexity is such that if you do not know what you are doing, okay, you are potentially going to open up a significant security holes. And these are not just security holes into OpenClaw, but depending on where you've installed this, you may be opening up significant security holes into your digital life. What's your digital life? Very simple. It's your emails, it's your texts, it's your calendar. If you're a business, it may be your online accounting or books, okay? It might be your employee records that you have stored on your computer. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, okay? So please, if you're a small and medium-sized business, and I know you're looking for that edge, don't just install this not understanding what you're doing. And just because it's on the internet and because folks on the internet think it's the best thing since sliced bread, you have to realize that sometimes the excitement on the internet is fueled more by self-serving agendas than they are by really trying to serve the general populace in terms of their benefit, okay? Now, you can believe me or not, that's not my perspective. That's not the way that I do things, mainly because I have been in the consulting world for, again, nearly 30 years. So can you please show a demo of OpenClaw? So I can't show you a demo OpenClaw because, to be honest, I have not set it up yet. And the reason I have not set it up yet is because, and I can share something with you guys. So we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty here. I'm going to switch around some screens so you can see what's going on. Okay. So let me just double check, make sure we got all our screens switched here. Okay. So what are you looking at? So to begin with, screens should be updating. You should be seeing what you're seeing. What you're looking at is the GitHub project, okay, from OpenClaw. Actually, this is the GitHub project from OpenClaw. Let me bring that up. So this is the OpenClaw website, okay, where they have a variety of information here on the things to do and the things not to do. Now, the actual, okay, so this is the actual, give me a second, that my screen should update there for you guys. Okay, so this, what you're looking at is the GitHub project, okay, for OpenClaw. This is what everybody's quote unquote losing their mind about, okay? It's not a simple installation of like Microsoft Word or some other thick client tool, okay? This is a GitHub project. Now, this project has gotten lots of stars, okay? And if we look up here, we can see that it's got 197,000 stars. That's just basically people like the project, okay? Doesn't mean anything other than they like the project. Now, again, you have to understand a lot of this, excitement comes from people serving their own personal agendas for whatever reason, and also jumping on the bandwagons. And then we have the number of forks. So what is a fork? A fork is the ability to take a snapshot of somebody's code in GitHub. And for those who are not familiar with GitHub, what is it? It's basically a code repository. It's one of the most popular, probably the most popular place to store code in the world. Okay, it's used by large corporations as well as individuals. So fork is basically creating a copy of this code, and 34,000 people have done so, including myself. Now, why would I have created a copy of this code? I wanted to create a copy of this code because I wanted to get a snapshot of it that I could run through cloud-based analysis. And I use cloud-based analysis to do so through Codex because I didn't want this code onto my personal computer. Okay, I didn't want it to have access to any of my personal files on my personal computer. So by doing so, it's a very safe way for me to be able to do an analysis through the cloud using OpenAI's Codex, and it found many, many security holes. The software has recently been, or the project has recently been reviewed by Cisco, which is a very reputable company, and also by IBM, okay? And in both cases, their cybersecurity folks, their reactions to this was a bit horrified, okay? So you don't have to take my word for it, or the handful of others out there that are honestly professing, the right way to manage this stuff. But the reality is that there are many, many security holes here. So if you're a small business or even a medium-sized business and you thought this is a great idea to just drop this onto my computer, follow some online instructions and get it up and running, you are putting your business at risk. And it's just that simple, okay? So what I did is I forked this. I created a copy in my own GitHub project. Now, when I did this stream just the other day, literally yesterday, okay, I was over 1,500 commits behind. Again, I'm going to break this down to try to make it simplified for some of the folks that are maybe not so technical to understand. That basically means there was 1,500 changes made to the original code that I did not have, okay? Now, if you can imagine for a moment, okay, you are small-sized business, medium-sized business, tech geek, which is great, okay? But you're like, okay, I'm going to install this on my personal machine. Or maybe you're smart and you decide to do it on a Mac Mini or something of this nature. And you ran out there and you grabbed it 5 days ago, 10 days ago. You, unless you are syncing with your local environment or the environment in which you have deployed this with. If you have not been doing that, you are thousands of commits behind, okay? Commits are actually code changes. And what type of code changes do you think have been made over the last 10 days by even the original developer himself who wrote this code and put it out there? A lot of them are security patches and security holes, okay? So you've got people who are running old versions of this already after even 2 weeks with lots of security holes that were found in the first couple versions of this software, and now are continuing to run this in a very risky way. So I forked it. I did do the sync. I did do a sync yesterday, and again, I'm already 631 commits now behind on this code. So I will sync it again. So to your point, earlier question in terms of can you see a demo, I will not be installing this anywhere near my local machines nor my local LAN. I will be installing this in the cloud at some point in time, but I'm going to wait for the code, to be honest, to settle down, because this number of commits are way, way, way too many. You should never see this kind of volume of commits. It's a red flag. And one of the reasons it's a red flag is because, again, you've got companies like Cisco and IBM who are going out there and doing judicial reviews of this code and are horrified at the amount of security holes. Now, I can also tell you that if we look at one of the cybersecurity sites out there, okay, that is this one here. So give a second, my screen will update. That is Shodan. Shodan is currently reporting nearly, over 33,000 exposed, basically dashboards, or what is referred to within this particular project as the control panel. Okay, so there's 33,000 exposed control panels. Now, if you read the documentation and you understand the documentation from a technical perspective, you should have never exposed the URLs for the control panel to the public, period. There's no reason for it. There's better approaches and more secure approaches. So this is very, very concerning in itself, okay? And hackers use this information to then try to initiate an attack on your systems. And if you can imagine being a small business, okay, not understanding any of this, implementing this, you are really putting a lot at risk for something that may not give you the type of reward you're looking for, okay? Let's see, I do have a question out there. Looks like you're preparing for software engineering. I'm a first-year student, bachelor in, looks like machine learning. That's why I ask you to connect on LinkedIn so that career-related doubts can ask there. Yeah, so you should be able to find me on there. My information is public on there, so you should be able to find me on there. Okay. Okay, so if you got questions, comments, drop them in. If you are a small business thinking about implementing this, by all means, please drop me a question. I'm happy to give you some guidance, which is mainly going to be put it on hold for a minute. Don't jump on this so quickly, okay? Because it's not going to benefit you. Let me just, I gotta adjust my camera. Okay. Again, if you got questions, comments, drop them into chat, and I will be happy to try to answer them for you. We are streaming on TikTok and Live and X. I should be able to see pretty much all your chats and questions coming through on any of those channels. Just drop them in, and I will be happy to try to answer them for you. So let's talk a little bit more about what OpenClaw is and what it's not. Okay, so what it is absolutely not, okay, is an AI model or an LLM, okay? On its own, there is no neural network, okay? There is no inference occurring within OpenClaw itself, okay? You need to understand this. Why? Because in order to get much out of this project, you're going to have to integrate it with an LLM. What does that mean? Number one, you're going to have to sign up with one of the model providers, whether it's OpenAI or whether it's Anthropic, and you're going to have to get yourself API access to their large language model in order to integrate this into your OpenClaw. Pardon me. So once you do that, you now have connected your OpenClaw to an LLM, and that in essence becomes the brain. What's actually embedded within OpenClaw itself in terms of the project is really a combination of events and rule-driven logic, okay? Also known as kind of an orchestration layer with various exposed events and inputs and output, methods, if you will. Okay. So at the end of the day, OpenClaw or any of the other 8 names you know by it, okay, is not AI. Okay. It requires an AI model to make much use out of it. And thanks for the hearts. I really appreciate it on TikTok. So that means you need to connect it with an LLM. You have to do it through an API. That also means that if you do this, okay, and if you're somebody who is bent on doing this, then make sure that you rate limit that API connection. Now, different platforms have different ways of doing that, but one of the most important things is you set yourself a budget, okay? Set yourself a budget and make sure that the way that it's enforced on that platform is such that if you exceed that budget, okay, that the API will basically stop. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because the way that this orchestration process works is through inputs and outputs, and the LLM providing basically instructions to the related agents of the OpenClaw platform itself, the orchestration piece, once you deploy it, okay? Now, because it is not strictly rules-based, okay, hard and fast rules, you can have an agent perform a lot of actions, okay, and can have an agent potentially have a lot of input-outputs with that LLM. And each time you're having a conversation with an LLM, it is inputs, outputs in terms of tokens in, tokens out, tokens in, tokens out. Okay, and this is what you and basically the tokens in the tokens going in and out is what you're going to be charged for, right? And so what does that mean? That means you're going to run up a big bill. Okay, if you have not rate limited that API connection to that LLM. Okay, now, worst case scenario, you don't enforce any type of rate limitation on that API for the LLM, okay? You unfortunately expose a connection into your OpenClaw platform. And what I mean by that, it can be as simple as connecting Discord, okay, to your OpenClaw without any allow lists or guardrails in place. Somebody sends in an input, okay, through a message that causes your LLM and your agents to kind of run in a loop, okay, or worse, do something destructive to your machines through basically what is referred to as kind of prompt injection. Okay, this can all turn very, very badly, and then again, insult to injury, if you will. You might find yourself with a very large bill from your AI provider, okay? So there's lots of areas here that you need to be concerned about and take into consideration if you have any intent of deploying this project. So what would I do? Number one, you need to make sure you do not expose your control center, okay? Do not expose it to the public internet. Now, by default, this control center is set up as a loopback to the local host, basically, okay? Again, that's a lot of jargon, but basically what it means is that the only way you're accessing the control panel is if you're physically on that machine or you've tunneled into that machine somehow, okay? And that's good. That's a security measure. That means you know, not any Joe Blow on the internet can jump onto your control panel and start performing actions, or worse, get access to some of your authentication information or keys or configuration details. Okay, so key thing is do not expose your control center. Now, as I mentioned before, if I jump over to this other screen with Shodan, bada bing, bada boom. Okay, we're looking at nearly 34,000 exposed control panels across the world, and over 11,000 of those are here in the United States. Okay, that is concerning. That is very concerning. So all these people have chosen, or unknowingly chosen, to expose their control panel to the public, and that is very high risk. Okay, so what do? Don't do it. Okay, now the latest releases from OpenClaw, from my understanding and doing some substantial analysis, is that it actually will try to discourage you from opening the control panel to a publicly accessible URL. Okay, and that's good. That's actually very good. So they're making some changes, but I would still be very cautious. Okay. Let's go back to here. Okay, so what else do we need to talk about? Authentication. You need to make sure that your authentication keys and passwords and things of these nature is locked down. Now, the best way to really deploy this would be to deploy it under something called a container. Docker container really is what it is. It's like a virtual environment on a machine, like a VPS under a VPC. So lots of fun acronyms. Let's break them down. Okay. VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. Think of AWS, think of Google Cloud, Azure, etc. VPC, Virtual Private Computer, okay, or I'm sorry, VPS, a Virtual Private Server, okay. That is the concept of spinning up a server in one of these cloud environments, okay. It's not typically a physical server as you might think about it. It is a virtual server, but you can run your code out there. And the benefit there is that now you're gapped, okay? You are gapped from your local network, whatever that local network is. If it's a business network, you're gapped from it. If you are if it is a private network, in other words, your home network, again, you're gapped from it, meaning you're putting yourself at far less risk of a runaway process or a malicious process being able to get to your files and to other sensitive digital information that you have on your computer. Okay, so that would be number 2. Okay, deploying Docker container. Now here's the interesting thing: when you deploy this, you also have multiple kind of layers here. So you've got the gateway, which is kind of the main process that's responsible for the orchestration, handling the inputs and outputs and things of this nature. But then you also have your agents, and those agents in essence are the skills that you are running. Those agents should also be isolated into their own containers. This is actually talked about in their documentation, so that when an agent is running, it should be running in its own container, separate from the gateway container. And this allows for better security and more isolation. Should anything happen from a prompt injection perspective, it'll have less access to wreak havoc on your systems. The other thing is that if you're truly wanting to just experiment with this and get an idea of what's possible, my biggest recommendation or strongest recommendation would be that you, in this gapped environment, running in Docker containers in the cloud environment, okay, you also utilize unique accounts. And what I mean by that, one-off type of accounts. As an example, most of us probably have 2 or 3 Gmail accounts by this time in our lives. It's just a fact of life. Would I connect this day one to one of my Gmail accounts? Absolutely not. Okay. Would I go and create a brand new Gmail account that's got no historical information in it, especially about all the password resets and security questions and things that have come across my email, over the last 10 years? Absolutely not, right? So I would connect it to a brand new account and then use that brand new account to play with it and get an understanding of what it's doing and what it's not doing. And I would do that for all the connections. So let's say you want to connect to Slack. Well, same thing. Do it in a unique Slack account, something brand new where there's not a bunch of historical information. Same thing with browsing. If you want to do browsing, use a browser that doesn't have all your passwords stored in it. So, if you're using Chrome as an example, and you log into Chrome with a Gmail account, well, now you've got all your passwords and stuff that start, populating and are available there. You don't want to do that because basically you've just given the keys to the kingdom to an agent to run wild if that's what happens. Okay, so the best thing to do is to deploy it under a cloud environment. Okay, so your VPC, virtual private cloud. In addition, spin up a VPS, virtual private server. Now, you don't necessarily have to spin up even a full server. A lot of these platforms like AWS and Google Cloud will allow you to take a Docker image and just run that Docker image as a service. Okay, and by doing that, you can save yourself some cost and some aggravation, and manage it. Manage it through something like SSH or another client server type of implementation. Okay, but that would be my best recommendation. That way, it's isolated from your network. You connect to new accounts only. Okay, that you're using for testing, till you get a feel and an understanding. And again, for anybody new here, let's just do a quick reality check. Here's the reality check, and I'm going to switch screens up here a little bit, and it takes a second to update, right? Number 1, cybersecurity site, Shodan. Here we are, okay? Over almost 34,000 publicly exposed URLs to the control center for OpenClaw. That is concerning. So I see that somebody's dropping a question. Can the bot code for an app and make it for you? So, here's the quick answer to your question. Number 1, this product on itself, the OpenClaw product on itself, which again is not really a product, it is a project, okay, on its own does not have built-in AI capabilities. This is the biggest misconception based on everything that's on the internet, okay? By itself, it does not have AI capabilities. If you want to start building like a bot, or you want to build a mobile app or something of this nature, right? Here's my recommendation. Go and pay $20 for a subscription to OpenAI and start using OpenAI's codex. You get an awful lot of coding and very smart coding for a very small amount of money right now through OpenAI, and I don't get anything for that recommendation. This is not a sponsored video or stream by any stretch of the imagination. So that's the first thing I would do if that's what you want to experiment with. And then if you like that, then consider Claude Code, okay? But here's the thing that people don't realize, and it's the way the internet works. The reality is OpenAI's Codex has had many of the same features and functions available that Claude Code just recently came out with that everybody's kind of losing their mind about, right? So for a very small amount of go and use OpenAI's Codex, experiment with that. If you are a developer and you're familiar with VS Code, you can install the plugin. You can use it right there in your code so that you can do local development and you can work out all those details. That's where I would start, okay? Don't worry about OpenClaw because it's not going to get you where you want to go or need to go as related to developing, whether it's a SaaS application, web-based, or whether you want to do some mobile app development as well, okay? I got other questions, comments, just drop them into chat and I will be happy to try to answer. So I brought this up again, almost 34,000 exposed public URLs. That's kind of frightening. Again, mainly because people don't realize what they are doing with this. Now, the other thing is, as we talked about this a little earlier, I have forked the GitHub project for OpenClaw, okay? And the great thing about this is then I get to kind of monitor this, right? And I get to see that I am already 631 commits behind. Now that's code changes that happened. And to be honest, those code changes really have happened within about the last 24 hours because yesterday when I was streaming, I did the same thing in terms of the presentation and I was 1,500 commits behind. And I went in and I synced that up. So there's been literally 631 commits now within the last 24 hours. That gives you an idea of how unstable or unstable, I should say, this current project is and how they're changing it. And I'm guessing a lot of it has to do with security hole patching, okay? You say you have a crazy ad idea, or I think an app idea. Well, here's the amazing thing about today's world. In today's world, if you have an idea, okay, we have never been closer to democratizing the ability to take your idea, okay, and actually create it, right? And the reason I say that is because a lot of the hard and difficult tasks and the heavy lifting with taking an idea, okay, from your head and making it come to life is going to be handled by AI. What you have to focus on is being able to clearly envision and describe what it is that you're trying to accomplish, okay? When you can do that, then you'll be able to harness the power that AI gives you in terms of the creation of whatever you want to create, whether that is creative output like video or photos or apps, and those apps can be either mobile apps or they can be web-based SaaS. The list goes on and on and on, okay? That is where the power is going to come in. Democratization of hard skills so that that barrier of you creating something amazing is going to be lowered pretty significantly. And I've been seeing that already, and it's pretty crazy, pretty exciting. So that is my advice if you like it or not. Okay, questions, comments on this? Again, we're talking mainly about OpenClaw. I do see, I've talked to some people and made them sign an NDA and told them my idea. They said mine are the best and thanks. Sure. I mean, run with it. I've got tons of ideas in my brain, right? And I'm kind of trying to get them out as well. But I would be cautious in terms of who you share your ideas with. My father, once upon a time, told me, be careful who you share your vision and ideas with, because most people will want to, how do I politely say, poop on them, okay? Downplay them, tell you it's stupid, bad idea. In today's world, if you got an idea, you can create the outcome of that idea with a relatively low amount of effort, at least in terms of getting to like a MVP or a proof. Okay, so take it, run with it, and explore it. You never know. It may be the million idea you've been looking for. Let me make sure I'm not missing any questions, comments. Okay. Any other questions, comments out there? Again, we are streaming across X and TikTok and YouTube on long and shorts. If you have questions, comments, drop them in, and I'm happy to chat with you about them. Mainly, we were talking about OpenClaw. Okay, and again, if you are a small business, please take a beat. Okay, and don't just install this. Especially do not install it on your business computers. Okay. There was a statistic that was just recently released, and all this is so new, that the percentage of skills, okay, and these are separate software, these are separate code downloads that you would download in order to implement skills under OpenClaw, that nearly, I think, 25% of them had either malicious code or significant security holes. Okay, so that in itself is a problem. So not just the base product itself or the base project itself having security concerns, but then when you are opening this up to downloading code that is coming from people you do not know, and code that is not being vetted through some commercial process, okay, and being confirmed in terms of whether it's malicious or not malicious or things of this nature, then you're really risking a significant downside to your business for very little upside. So get with somebody if you can, a consultant, a really smart teenager or young person. There's plenty of them out there that really understand the technical aspects, and have them help you out. And again, I would deploy this in a very isolated and locked down environment so that you can get an idea whether it's even going to be beneficial and use new accounts. Let's see, what's the coolest thing you've done with a bot yet, and is it hard to learn? ClawdBot. It depends on what you're referring to there. In terms of, I don't do a lot with bots per se. My primary project I've been working on lately has been a kind of home budgeting SaaS application. And it's full multi-tenant, multi-user, and lots of kind of computations and encryption and things of this nature for security purposes. So it's taken a fair amount of time, my time. The majority of that coding has been done through what I was referring to before, is what I call it PLD, prompt-led development. But as the Claude Code and as OpenAI's Codex has evolved and new versions have come out, it's gotten smarter and better at being able to handle the coding and updates that I need. So it's been very exciting. So as far as learning anything, if you're asking about like Claude Code, which is an Anthropic product, there's some stuff out there on YouTube. But here's the real key thing as related to learning any of these coding agents. And this is true about AI as well. So if you're out there and you're listening, definitely appreciate it. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate that. But if you are somebody who is employed, okay, and you're trying to figure out how to use AI within your own job, and a lot of companies have made it available to their employees, but a lot of employees are simply not using it or don't understand how to use it. Here's the very simple thing I can tell you. Consider using something called the humanity test. Okay, so what's the humanity test? It's very, very simple. If I were to ask you, okay, to do some task, maybe create me a spreadsheet, maybe create me a video with a specific type of scene, doesn't make a difference what it is, even a program or maybe a little utility program. But if I was going to ask you to do that for me, okay, and I was your manager, or perhaps we were fellow team members, as employees in a company, and I gave you that information, and when I gave you the information of what I was looking for you to do in terms of a task, you looked at me like a deer in headlights going, Joe, what are you asking me to do? I don't understand what you are asking me to do. Or, Joe, okay, I understand kind of what you're asking me to do, but what I've got like 10 other questions I need answers to, okay? That's the humanity test. If you can't give the same information to AI that you would be able to give to a human being, okay, that would then take those instructions from you and whatever additional assets or resources they need to get from you, whether that would be a spreadsheet, some other report, or some code, or whatever it might be. If you can't have that conversation with a person and be able to hand that off to a person, you're not going to get out of AI what you need, okay? You have to look at it the same way. When you're talking with AI or when you're interacting with AI in the prompts, you need to consider, right? You really need to consider that conversation is like a human conversation. So I've got some chats coming in. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just quickly take a look at some of these. I won't go deep dive on any of the projects I'm working on. Okay. TikTok chats, they tend to bounce around a little bit. So I'm sorry. Sometimes it looks like there's more streaming in than there actually are. So I do see I've got one in here from Monkey. I won't say the last one. People's screen names are pretty funny. You have to admit. More time showing us how to get started. Less time saying what we should. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. I think I will plan to do a more technical how-to, an actual under the hood of OpenClaw. I'm not going to do it today because it's going to take a little pre-work for me. I'll set up my own virtual private cloud and virtual private server, and then I'll start spinning these things up. Okay, and then I will do that in real time with you guys. The challenge, of course, is always the various degree of people's technical backgrounds, right? And I try to keep it somewhat understandable for as many people as I can. But yeah, so your comment there about people being afraid of GitHub, oh, absolutely, right? To be honest, here's a little unknown fact, if you will, when it comes to GitHub, that most people don't realize. When you go to set up a GitHub project or a GitHub account and then put your first project and repo in there, do you know by default it is public? Okay, so we have a person in here who's got a great idea, okay, and they want to code that idea. They probably want to put that into GitHub for safekeeping, right? So that if their machine completely crashes and they lose everything, they still have their project, right? Also, if you want to do CDCI, again, simple terminology, continuous development, continuous integration, that is a pipeline for software development and deployment. If you want to do that, you're going to need something like GitHub. But here's the dirty little secret. You put your stuff out there, and by default, it's public. And I'm not really sure, to be honest, why they thought that was a great idea. But it is. So you have to explicitly go into your account and set that repo as being private. Now, here's the other issue that a lot of people get caught with GitHub. And for some developers, they're like, duh, that's so basic, right? But there are plenty of people who don't realize some basic things. They either missed that day in class or they simply are just new to software development, software engineering. So things like your environmental file, right? Specifically the ones that contains your OAuth keys and other credentials. Often people fail to identify it as a file that should not go up to GitHub. And therefore, if you search GitHub, you can find a lot of exposed credentials because by default, it's public. And by default, most people are pushing everything up to GitHub. And by doing so, now they've exposed their credentials. So let me, I'm going to scroll back here and see what chats are coming in. Give me 1 second. We'll follow and come back. Okay, great. Appreciate that, Monkey. And let's see. The file tree is exposed code structure, right? Yep, absolutely. And let's see. My Wi-Fi is globalized. Warming. I'm IC chat. GPT American. Unplugged by Lyric. I'm not sure what that was, but that was interesting. It's kind of like a poem. So yeah, I mean, there's when it comes to AI, right? There's a lot of debates on both sides regarding the environmental impact, the impact on energy. I mean, the list goes on and on. This is not a political channel. This is really diving into AI and also diving into all things related to kind of the impact of it around jobs and things of that nature. So if you got questions on that, I'm happy to provide you with some insight if I can. Should you give your credit card? No, that's a bad idea. And believe it or not, people are doing that with OpenClaw, right? They are giving them access to their financial information or their credit card, right? Again, if you installed this locally and it's using the browser you normally use, as we probably all know by now, so many of our browsers that we're using is storing our credit card information, right? And it's very easy to then purchase something and just have that auto-populate. So definitely recommend not giving it any type of financial access. Now, at some point in time, if you really wanted to play with this and you had this isolated into a cloud environment, okay, and you really wanted to begin to kind of test some of the push the limits, if you will, in terms of OpenClaw, right? You could give it potentially a debit card, right? Like a preloaded debit card with $200 on it, right? What is that going to do for you? Well, that's going to allow you to potentially test that in that type of use case you're maybe referring to, right? But at least you're not going to get lose any more than $200 if this thing goes off the rails, right? So if I was doing it, that's what I would do. The problem with this project is they have not implemented much in the way of guardrails. They've left it up to the people who are deploying the project. And so many people who are deploying the project are just very, very new, right? They're newbies. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially in today's world with where I see the democratization of coding going. But you have to acknowledge that also puts some people at significant risk because they don't realize the risk that they are taking, right? So yeah, for me, once I deploy this, if I get to a point where I want to see, okay, can it go out and make a purchase for me, or could it, engage like a human being in real life, through like maybe DoorDash or something of this nature, right? It would be interesting to experiment with that, right? But I would do it in such a way that I ensured that I put my own guardrails on it so that I didn't have any big surprises. That brings me back to one of my original statements earlier, which was your integration to your LLM through the API. Make sure you're putting rate limits on that, right? Make sure you're putting a budget and you are setting a hard budget, because if it goes wild, right, the last thing you want is, $1,000 bill coming to your door, so to speak, for all your API charges, okay? So make sure you've got guardrails in place for that. Let me see. Yeah, prompt engineering is definitely a real job. But I think I would also classify it as a skill set that needs to be not only taught, but truly practiced. Okay. And that's what I was mentioning earlier as well. Thanks for the hearts. I really appreciate that. Careful with cloud and processing commands. You can blow a lot of money. Yep, absolutely. So this is one of the reasons why, at least from my perspective, and I don't know whether it's changed, there are some platforms where if you deploy, you can tear down as well, or you can at least put the container on pause, so it doesn't tear down, maintains your configuration, but will not have any processes running. And by doing so, you either go to a zero charge per minute, or you go to something very small to maintain that environment. Excuse me. But AWS, from my experience, didn't fully allow that. There were hacks and tricks that we would have to use to try to reduce the overall cost, but basically we didn't have much of an option other than either tearing it all the way down, which meant we had to rebuild it every time we went out there. But there are so many different services now that are not just AWS or GCP, which is Google Cloud. There's a lot of different ones out there that I would explore in terms of their cost. Let's see. Any good GUI products for visual modeling, drag and drop, or code in GitHub? So this is where I would say think AI first, right? And what do I mean by that? When you run into a problem, right, or you've got a large problem that you're breaking down into components, and you're trying to visualize how you might work your way through that problem, right? When you feel stuck, think AI first. And I'll try to give you some simple examples. I will often use, and I'm a big user of OpenAI and also of Anthropic. And so I will often use some of these, right, in what I call a stream of consciousness, okay? The stream of conscious is basically doing kind of a brain dump of what I'm thinking and what I'm trying to get to into the chat, right? And then that starts a conversation. And that typically starts a conversation that I can begin to refine, and by answering questions in terms of the specific goal or task that I have. And when I start having that conversation, I can then say, okay, let's model this out as an example. Now, I've become recently a big fan of Higgsfield, which is a platform that offers access to a whole variety of creative AI models, okay? So they're not programming models, but they're all sorts of creative models for photo, video, modeling, motion graphics, all different types. Now, I've been starting to use that as a mechanism for taking my brain dump, getting it into a prompt so that I can visualize it, and then having their motion control, I think it's called, or not motion control, it's motion graphics, I think, actually build this out for me so that I can kind of model it. Now, there is a specific, if you're looking for more of a true kind of software graphical diagram, there is a platform out there, and I'm trying to remember its name, that is almost all code-based, and you can have the you in this conversation that I'm referring to with OpenAI, you can actually ask it to create, and I just remembered what it is, Mermaid. Create you Mermaid code, then go to Mermaid, I think it's mermaid.com, head over there, you drop in the Mermaid code, and before you know it, you've got yourself a fantastic design that can be, so it's Mermaid chart, or mermaid.ai.com. I just pulled it up on my screen. Hopefully you can see it. So I sometimes use this, but I use AI thinking first, have AI break this down into Mermaid code for me, and then I drop it into here, and it will give me my diagrams, and then in turn I can come back and change it with code. So I've got a couple other questions. So what is my life's goal? That's a pretty broad question. I'm actually a bit older than I look, so that's why I've been working in the tech industry for nearly 30 years. My goal is, excuse me, pretty simple, and that's to maintain being relevant during the AI era, and I think 2026 is going to be crazy. Excuse me, I think 2026 is going to be crazy in terms of the AI, how AI is going to evolve. So my goal is pretty simple, to be honest, right now, and is to maintain my relevance in the AI era. as a professional within the technology industry. So hopefully that answers your question. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Let's see. Good to know. You can pause them. Didn't know that. Cloud services you recommend are opposite Azure. Yeah, you know, AWS and Azure are going to be typically the more expensive ones. There's others out there I would explore. Again, I would go and have a conversation with ChatGPT. It'll talk to you, I'm sure, about all the different ones that are now available. And Higgsfield, yeah, I actually have become quite the fan of Higgsfield. So I was paying for way too many different creative models because I also, not only am I technical, I'm also creative, which obviously goes into being willing to stream, put my face in front of camera, and create a variety of content. So I was using a variety of different creative models, and then finally, when I saw what Higgsfield had been doing in terms of making so much available on one platform, I said, okay, I'll get rid of all the others and just use this one. And the way that the creative platforms are advancing in terms of what they can do is just truly mind-blowing. Okay, other questions, comments? Yeah, so Mermaid is pretty cool. In fact, here, if you want a little demo, here is a conversation, okay, that I was having earlier with OpenAI, okay. This conversation was related to all things OpenClaw, okay. Now, what I will ask it to do is I can ask create me a mermaid diagram code for representing OpenClaw orchestration steps and input outputs based on our conversation. Ask me questions to clarify. Okay, this is how you talk and interact with AI. Humanity test. Okay, so create me a mermaid diagram code for representing OpenClaw orchestration steps and input outputs based on our conversation. Ask me questions to clarify if necessary. We'll fire that off. Okay, so didn't come back with any questions. Did create the code. So now I've got my code. I'm going to jump into. Okay, so actually it does have questions. It came back towards the end. A few quick questions that would let me make this diagram match your mental model and what you want to show publicly. Do you want the control UI shown as HTTP plus a WebSocket, more accurate, or just a dashboard? Okay, so should I include a separate node for approvals required, human in the loop versus fully automated? And do you want the sandboxing drawn as a per session, which is main versus non-main, or per agent, different agents and different boxes? So we will leave this all as is for now. But this is this type of thing that you have a conversation with. Okay. Now here's the key thing, guys. And again, if you're familiar with using AI or not, if you don't understand any of these questions, AI first. You ask it, please explain what the difference is, or please explain in more detail what you mean here. Okay, and it will provide you all that detail. It's like a professor, teacher, mentor that never gets angry or bored of answering your questions. So if I take this and I'm going to go into Mermaid here, and I'm going to pause my screen here. I'm going to jump to a different screen for a second. Oops. we're going to hang out here for a second while I log in here. I just don't want to share the login details, of course. Okay, and that should update all the way around. So I will log in here. I think I have an account under one of my so I'll share again so you can kind of see these details. So we're back to Mermaid. Okay, so it's an AI-based diagramming software, very useful. Say software development, individual contributor, next, and let's just call it Joe. Okay, we'll skip the rest of this. Okay, so we'll try it for free. Okay, so this is the cool part. Now, if I come over to AI, okay, from our chat, if I come back over there, here's the mermaid code, okay, based on our conversations in this chat. I copy that, take it over to mermaid, and I should be able to drop the code in. Okay, code shows up on the left-hand side here, which is great because you can always go back and edit it very easily and see your changes on the right-hand side, and this should be processing. Okay, so it looks like there's some syntax errors. We'll let it fix it on its own. You're welcome. Glad you appreciate the live. And as soon as this is done, we should have ourselves a diagram. Let me flip over my other screen. Okay, I'll apply those fixes, and there you go. Okay, so we went from an AI conversation, okay, to being able to build out a pretty complex diagram. So if you are doing, software development, or you are doing high-level solutioning of some sort, even working with clients, you can automate a lot of these processes, a lot of these back-end processes that before took hours and hours and hours of time to create. So AI can be extremely powerful, extremely useful. I think the biggest benefit for AI these days is honestly in two categories. One is operational efficiencies for businesses, small, medium, and large. And then also the ability for creatives, okay, to be able to truly create whatever they have in their mind with little to no limitations now. You can create something that is, you can create something that is, as big and as bold as a complete full-featured film, if you want, right? So that's the whole thing about AI, guys, is it's the democratization of all these hard skills and expensive roadblocks that people had to accomplishing things in their lives, whether it was making a film or a photo or creating a new application or being able to run their own business more efficiently, or being in a job in which you have to do a lot of tedious, repetitive tasks that you don't particularly care for. Okay, the evolution that's going to happen here, if you're ready for it and if you embrace it, is that as an employee within a company, what you are going to become more of than what you are today as AI rolls out and starts to automate the various roles and tasks you're responsible for, is you're going to become more of a manager. And I don't mean a manager of people, but a manager of agents, agentic agents, okay? You're going to end up being the human in the loop as related to those processes. That's where the world is going to go. Now, if you have 100 people in your group, are you going to need all 100 in that group still? No, unfortunately not. You're going to need maybe 2. So your group's going to go from 100 to 2 people doing the exact same amount of work and producing the same amount of output. And that is where the challenge is going to be. But you want to be one of those 2 people. And in order to be one of those 2 people, you need to embrace AI. You need to understand that in my little analogy that I have, you want to be the zebra. You don't want to be the elk. Okay. And what does that mean? It means standing out. Okay. Standing out. You want to stand out. And how do you do that? By polishing up your soft skills, which are managerial, communication, asking the right questions, things of this nature. Hello, this is Dave, and hey, Spree, thanks for jumping in. But aren't the agents only running the skills that you've made? So with OpenClaw, yes. So first of all, there's a limited number of skills that come from the base project itself, right? And then you've got skill libraries out there, but I don't think you were in here earlier. So what I'll tell you is that recent reviews of that skill library is showing that about 30% of the skills out there in that library have malicious code, right? And think about it. If you're a hacker, this is like a field day for you. You are looking and salivating, if you will, at all these people who are installing something they don't fully understand, okay? And then they're going out and they're downloading skills. And these skills are not coming from vetted sources. And so there's a lot of malicious code that is going to get deployed onto people's servers. And most of that malicious code either has simple security holes that open up your platform to risk, but they also have a malicious code that one of the most common types of hack that the malicious code tries to do is look for your digital wallets, okay? Digital wallets and your digital keys, right? To steal your crypto or any other digital assets you have stored on your computer, okay, or on your phone for that matter, if you're trying to run the stuff on your phone. Well, I've been writing my own. That's why I've been writing my own. Yes, that's smart. Okay, and see, this is the thing, Dave. Right, with the power of AI, right? Whether it's Claude Code or whether it is Claude Code or whether it is like OpenAI's Codex, you can do that. You don't have to rely on some random person on the internet writing you a skill. You can write the skill yourself. And that's where it goes back to the same thing I was saying a moment ago. You got to think AI first, right? I'm about to do something that I feel like is risky. Take a step back. AI first. I bet you I can get this done through AI and have more confidence that I'm not exposing myself unnecessarily to risks or random people on the internet. Okay? So that's smart. Is crypto really the future? My personal opinion, and I don't want to upset anybody, I don't think so. Okay? Now, the thing about crypto is I don't like to confuse the currency, like Bitcoin as an example, with the underlying technology of the blockchain. The blockchain technology is actually very smart and can be very useful for a lot of different reasons and different implementations. But in terms of actual cryptocurrency, personally, I'm not a believer in it. I don't hold any of it in any of kind of my personal accounts or anything of this nature. But again, you've got people who are, hardcore believers. You got people who are not. I'm a believer in gold. Okay, now that might sound crazy, and this is not an investment channel, and I'm not giving investment advice. Okay, but the reason I'm a believer in gold is very, very simple. That is, it's been around for 10,000 years, 50,000 years, and it's got the historical aspect, associated with it. Yeah, tangibles, exactly. Okay. Again, not financial advice. Everybody makes their own decision. I am not providing that. That's just what I have done in my own life. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. So thanks everybody for joining in. Let's see. Wavy X paint. I've seen it go down. Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens with it this week for sure. In my opinion, I think it is unfortunately like metals. Yep. So we talked about that already. And gold and silver, right? And of course even copper. They have utility, right? They can actually be used for something physical in the world. It's pretty stuff, yes, but it can also be used, in electronics and circuits and things of this nature. Tangibles. Let's see. Okay. Somehow we have turned this into a financial discussion. So I don't want to go down that road, guys. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think 2026 is going to be wild. I really do. And I think it's going to be wild. Again, nothing from a political perspective. It's going to be wild because what's happening with AI, and I work personally for a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm seeing it firsthand. The productivity output with the employees who are embracing AI is substantially high. In January, there were 108,000 layoffs announced by a variety of companies, all blaming or attributing it to AI. Okay, AI taking over the roles. So this is only going to become, something more common that we see. But what's going to happen is when companies achieve higher productivity output, right, their stock prices go up because their costs go down. So it's not complex math. It's actually very simple math. And so, what you're going to see is, I think, a lot of very interesting outcomes in terms of 2026. Let's see. I like OpenClaw at the core. At the core, what it is, right, is an orchestration platform that is event-driven, and it's implemented basically a queuing technology, right, a message queuing technology, so that basically not when the events come in, and I'm actually very familiar with this because it's something I've dealt with many times in my career. Excuse me. But the combination of the events, the queuing, keeps things linear and organized and sequential. The storage is primarily markdown files, so it's physical files on the system. So it's a fairly simple system from an orchestration perspective. Where some of the big risk comes in is that your inputs and outputs from your LLM can easily, as AI, as good as AI is today, okay, there are still risks in terms of things like hallucination or a misunderstanding, okay? And if that instruction is given to a skill or an agent that has no guardrails wrapped on it, then you might find yourself buying, let's say, you needed some toothpaste, and instead of buying one tube of toothpaste, it bought, 1,000 tubes of toothpaste for you because you said, I need a lot of toothpaste. I'm going on vacation, right? Now you got 1,000 tubes of toothpaste on the way to your home, and a bill from, Amazon for $10,000 for that toothpaste. It's just, you got to have guardrails. There's got to be checks and balances in this stuff. And for the longest time, right, in the world of programming, it was rules-based and logic, right? And it was very clear. When you implement LLMs, which is a great thing, you lose that hard and fast logic of, simple rules like if X equals 1, right? That's out the door. So I've got a few things flying by here. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, are you referring? Are you referring to? Oh, I think you're referring to the OpenClaw. Yeah, that the OpenClaw social media platform. I think it's called MoltBot. If you saw in some of the postings and also some of the reviews, couple problems. Number one, whoever set that up didn't know what they were doing, so everything was in clear text. Nothing was encrypted at rest. Okay, so through simple SQL scripts and prompt injection, people were able to extract tons and tons of authentication keys. So that was very problematic. The other thing I saw is, it's billed as agent communication, but from what I saw in another posting by somebody else, there is nothing that nothing that prevents a conversation between a human and an agent in there. So it's not pure agents. Plus, when it comes to agents, right? Call it a bot, call it an agent, whatever you want. You can give it a persona, okay? And depending on how that LLM is developed, you can give some crazy personas. Grok is an example. The Twitter/X model. They provide and allow for some very, kind of call them eccentric personas, right? So if you hook up Grok and you give it a, kind of an eccentric persona of some sort, right? You're going to get all sorts of kind of crazy things that are going to come out of it in terms of postings and things of that nature. Whereas like OpenAI is more conservative in terms of their model, in terms of creating that persona. Same thing with Anthropic. So you're going to get more kind of reasonable responses. So it looks like you're trying to build a skill right now for your client right now, and finds clients in certain issues. Yeah, I mean, so that's excellent. How are you running it though, Dave? Are you running it as a container on like a VPS, or where? Okay. So definitely be very, very careful of running it locally. Okay. So the reason I say that is, so first of all, is your control panel, is it still tied to your loopback? In other words, your local host. Have you exposed it all in terms of public? In other words, can you get to it from the internet? That would be the first question. Second question would be related to the environment that you're running it on. Are you running it on something like a Mac Mini? Are you running it within a Docker container? That would be my other questions in terms of kind of locking that down in your local environment. And then I would be very cautious about giving it, access to accounts in which you've got a significant historical information saved, right? Like giving it access to your email account, especially if that email account has been used for resetting passwords, okay? All that information would be in there. And if it received a prompt injection somehow through either a DM or some other way, it could potentially use the information that's within your emails to go and to do a password reset for somebody, okay? That would be problematic. So no, not yet. I've set it up for, I see you're using the local, okay. So you're using the Linux environment. Sounds like you're running this probably through VS Code, restricted permissions, big time. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and then if you haven't already, have a conversation with Claude Code or OpenAI's Codex. Tell it what you're doing, okay? Have it review your code. Are you using one of those as a plugin for your VS Code environment? Because if you are, I would definitely have it run a security scan. And then if you weren't on earlier, I forked the OpenClaw GitHub project, right? Now, I forked it about, I don't know, probably 5 days ago. Yesterday, I did a live stream. And when I checked during the live stream yesterday, I was 1,500 commits behind, right, for my fork. So if you have forked that, then you're definitely going to want to make sure you're getting the latest and greatest updates that are coming out from the developer. Because I can guarantee you, this gentleman, I don't have any reason to believe that he's not a legitimate and reasonable developer and concerned about security like anybody else. So I'm sure he is actively working on improving and patching a lot of the concerns that both Cisco and IBM have raised after they reviewed that code. Okay, so definitely consider that. Let's see. The hashes are wrong for some reason. Interesting. So I think you're indicating that you're not able to validate that code, if I'm understanding what you're saying. Yeah, and see, that's very concerning as well. There's so many movements there. That's why personally I'm taking a beat. You know, here's what I did, Dave. I took the code base and I forked it, and one of the reasons I forked it is because then I pulled it into my cloud codex, which is OpenAI's. Okay, I pulled it into the cloud codex, and I did an analysis on it. Now this provided me an opportunity to do a full analysis, ask questions, get into the code, right, without it ever touching my local system, right? Perfectly safe, no execution, and maintains, itself within the Codex OpenAI environment. So when I feel like this thing is settled down, I will continue to run my analysis on it, and only when I'm comfortable that I get kind of green lights from Codex or even Claude Code, that I will consider implementing it. It's a very interesting, but honestly very simple approach this gentleman has taken. The whole queuing concept, like I said, I'm very, very familiar with. It's something in the industry that I've been in for so long, which is CCM, Customer Communications Management Software. We do a lot of queuing of messages going in and out and around. So it was a smart approach. It's just the it's the limiting of these skills and or agents, to specific tasks, and then the prompt injection is I think the biggest concern for most people. So because the prompt injection, it can come from any input you have defined, right? And that input could be a DM, direct message, could be an email from, if you're monitoring, if you're monitoring a specific email account, maybe your customer service account, if you have a business, or it could be you're monitoring a web page, right? Maybe you're monitoring a web page, and depending on what's put on there, if somebody realizes that you're monitoring that, prompt injection could occur there. The more interesting thing is in terms of emails, right? You can get a prompt injection through a simple email, right? If you're watching and reading each mail that's coming through with your agents. So it's again, it's very interesting. I'm not a hater on technology by any stretch of the imagination, but in the world that I work in, security is paramount, because I work with large companies, Fortune 500, Fortune 250, federal government, state governments, local governments. It's been my experience over the last 30 years or so. So, how are they making their own religions and marketplaces autonomously? I don't. So to my understanding, like the social media platform, I think that you may be referring to, the Molt, I think it's called MoltBot. That was set up by somebody who probably used either Codex or OpenAI to develop it. Again, as you know, there is no AI in this product, right? The bottom line is people think they're downloading something that is AI. It's not AI. It's all rule-based and event-driven logic that's been built as an orchestration platform, right? Has to use AI through an API. That in itself has its own risk in terms of rate limits and other things, in terms of budgets and things of this nature. So you need a job. Well, it sounds like you are at least doing the smart thing. You are, doing a deep dive into AI, which is really important. It's going to make you more valuable in terms of the job market for sure. I think it's going to be the defining distinction between those who stay employed versus those who unfortunately find themselves in challenging situation. So, okay. I think I'm way over time in terms of the stream. I thank everybody who has joined in for the conversation, and hopefully you found some of this useful. I do enjoy talking about it. As this platform stabilizes, I will eventually do an OpenClaw install and walk it through in terms of what I'm seeing and experiencing with it. Again, I'll do it in a pretty safe manner with some guardrails and things on it. But I'm definitely gonna wait for the code to settle down. I mean, if I look right now, and you should be able to see my screens. In the beginning of this conversation, there were 631 commits that I was behind. So let's refresh the screen and see if that changes. And now, drum roll, we were up to 692 commits I'm behind. So there you go. That is not a stable project, okay? So I would definitely be very, very cautious. Maybe we do another drum roll for the exposed controls. So the exposed control panels out there, when we started this an hour and a half ago, we were at 33,429 exposed control panels. Now we're at 33,570. So be careful, have some fun. Again, I'm a geek at heart, so I definitely enjoy this stuff. But just be careful with it, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally expose yourself. I did have somebody reach out to me on one of my social media posts indicating that he had learned the hard way, and that was unfortunate. So be careful and have a great rest of your Sunday. And thank you guys very much for all your conversation and attending. Take care. Bye-bye.